Hey guys, welcome to Wrench to Drive. Today we're going to have a look at this FT MiniD 128 scale drift car that I got on AliExpress for a very reasonable price of 150 Canadian dollars. So that's about 110 US. And this is the brushless version, not ready to run, so no radio. The only thing you need to add is your own radio, and in my opinion that's a good idea. So there's the car. And we're going to go through this really quickly from front to back. This is just going to be a taking a look at the car video to show you, hopefully, the quality and what you get for your $110 if you get the brushed version, $150 Canadian if you get the brushless version, which I got here. So, most important thing, this chassis, super sweet. Starting at the front, magnetic body mounts. I took off the shocks so I can show you the suspension. A little bit stiff on this side, perfectly smooth on this side. And we're going to try and zoom in here a little closer so I can show you how tight this is. So let's just... There is no play in the suspension, which is exactly what you want. The only play is in the steering linkage, which is kind of to be expected. And there's very little there. Like, see how tight that is? There's nothing moving. Nothing moving. Right? And this side is just a hair stiff. This side is perfectly smooth. That level of stiff is going to be really hard to fix. Not worth it in my opinion. The front end, the suspension, the shocks are very soft, so you want it to be super smooth. It's fully adjustable. Really interesting feature in this car. The arms, see here, right in the back, that is adjustability space. What that means is that there's a spacer up here. That's why I took off the suspension mount, so you can see there's a spacer right here. Okay. What that means is you can adjust the caster in the suspension. So that's the tilt between the upper and the lower links. If you take the spacer out and push this in and put it on the other side right in here, you're going to get more caster angle. So it's going to be tilted back. And what that means is the car is going to have a tendency for the steering to straighten out, and it's going to drive in a straight line. Now for a drift car, what you want is neutral. In a touring car, some caster is going to help that car pull straighter down the straightaways. So between rear toe end and caster, you can make that car very stable on the straights. So this is totally adjustable. Obviously this spacer is a certain size, but you can use different size spacers to adjust that by a varying amount. Obviously, you can adjust the camber via the adjustable link here. You can adjust the preload on the shocks via these preload adjusters. Very nice. So this car is very tunable. It's also got a ball diff, which is adjustable via screws in the drive cups for tension. So you adjust the springs, and that varies the amount of lock in the diff. So in a drift car, this came very stiff out of the box. Not a lot of differential action. It is loosened up a lot. It's not super smooth yet, but it's loosened up a lot. And out of the box, I figured I'd drive it the way it was, even though it was set up very stiff. And like I said, it's wearing in, so that's a good thing. The bearings in this car are super nice. They're just, like I said, there's no play. The bearings are very high quality, so that's a really good thing. The back end, same deal. You can adjust everything. Typically on the back, caster angle is not a huge big deal, but you can adjust the camber. The only problem I found on this car is the rear toe links. They're fixed. That's the only thing you can adjust. And if we compress this a little bit, you can see there's a fair bit of play there. On this side, I added a little bit of B7000 glue to see if I could improve that, but didn't work out super well. I don't think there's a whole lot of difference from the side that I quote-unquote fixed. to the side that I didn't fix. It was worth a try. That glue comes off super easily, so if it had messed anything up, it would not be a big deal to go backwards. Last but not least, droop screws, front and rear, so you can adjust the ride height of the car. Very, very nice. Essentially all the adjustments you could possibly ask for. The car's wheelbase is adjustable, but you need to order a kit that comes with the upper plate, the stiffener in my world, the drive shaft, and it comes with spare gears. I mean, it's adjustable, it's a bit of a pain, and that kit is about $25 including shipping, which is not super, super cheap. Especially considering the brushed version of this car is a whopping $110 Canadian, so $25, that's a good chunk of the value of the car. A little steep, but again, that means you can adjust it. This is a 94mm wheelbase car. Bit of a downside because most of the bodies that you can buy are 98mm, much more common than the 94mm size, and the WL Toys cars are 98mm. Those are super, super common. There's lots of bodies, like very inexpensive bodies out there. Unfortunately, that means you can't use them out of the box. You're going to need a 94mm body. Now, the upside to a short wheelbase is that for drifting, it's going to be very, very nimble. For touring, a 98mm wheelbase might be a little bit better because it's going to be a little bit more stable. I'm pretty sure it goes up to 108, and it goes in 4mm steps. So what would that be? 92, 94, 98, probably 102, I guess. Okay, so I'm wrong on that. Anyways, very, very adjustable. Really, really sweet. The electronics, that's probably the biggest downside. It's not a huge downside, but it's a downside nonetheless. The servo is just one of these blue plastic gear, inexpensive servos. But the upside, this one works pretty well. It's very smooth. These are not all the same. I 100% have one that is a total piece of poo. It's so like clicky, not smooth. It goes in kind of steps. Not a good servo. This is definitely a better version of one of these cheap servos. So I don't want to be too hard on it, but it's definitely not a high quality servo. It's plastic gears. You know, it works well. I don't really think it's letting this car down in any meaningful way, but there are definitely better servos. The ESC is very basic. It's one of these generic brushless ESCs. I don't think it's programmable, but there are pictures of a very similar ESC being programmed with a Hobbywing ESC. My advice, if you're not 100% sure, just leave well enough alone. The reason I say that, if you use a good radio, like a Radio Link, like an RC6GS or an RC4GS that has throttle curves and dual rates and endpoints, blah, 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 you can adjust the performance quite nicely just with the radio, and this ESC works well. I have farted around with that quite a bit, and it works very, very nicely. The brushless motor works really well. It's a 6000 kV, which is don't have much experience with these little cars running brushless, and I've seen a lot of 6000 kV motors out there, so I thought, oh, that's good, it should be nice. And the upgrade was only about $30, so I thought, how bad can it be? That's a very inexpensive brushless upgrade. Well, this thing is insanely fast. It has way more wheel speed than you can possibly use. It just has all I can tell you guys is when you're running this thing on 2S, the feel is that it's got an insane amount of top speed, like just absolutely crazy. So I have it dialed back with the dual rate turned way down and the throttle curve adjusted so that the only time you get anywhere near full power is when you absolutely have it pinned. So that's my 2 cents worth. I think, and a lot of people I think feel the same way, 3500 kV is better for drifting. 6000 kV is probably more of a touring type setup with the brushless in these little guys. So take that for what you will. I'm by no means a guru in terms of these little cars, but that's my nickel's worth. So in terms of installing and whatnot, very, very easy. I learned the hard way. Be very, very careful because the little sticky outy thing with the pins on it that you hook the connector to is very fragile in these. I would have said I was being fairly careful, and I heard a crack, and yeah, it broke. So I ended up having to take this motor apart and soldering these wires in to get it back up and running. And it does indeed run, and it runs nice. So, you know, problem solved. But as you can see, the can is not quite seated properly. So, and actually, I don't know. I think it is. It's at least square, like, level. So that means, it shouldn't be too hard on the bearing, but, will it last as long as it would have if I hadn't made a boo-boo? Probably not. Something to take into account if you're new to these cars, be gentle with them. They are a little bit fragile compared to pretty much everything else. This car is a beast, in my opinion. For the money, I don't think you can do much better. It is so, so good. Everything about it is so nice. It's just, mechanically, it's an absolute beauty. Now, I ordered it off of AliExpress, Albatross something or other store. No complaints. It took them about a week to ship it, but after they shipped it, it got here to me in Canada from China in like 5 business days. Crazy fast. So they are definitely shipping via legit means, and it got here quick, so that's good. Anything on AliExpress, my advice is don't bank on super, super awesome support. Now, that being said, at this point, I have nothing bad to say about this seller. You get a really nice car. I ordered the brushless kit, so I was fully expecting to have to put this together, and I wanted to put it together. It came assembled. And in my humble opinion, assembled very, very nicely. That front end, that's the most important thing, as you saw, works beautifully. I've done nothing to it. And it's so nice and smooth that no complaints. Zero. Absolutely none. But, again, didn't get exactly what I asked for. Now, I could have swore that the link that I followed said I was getting the red body. I got the white and black body. Not a huge big deal in my opinion. I don't mind this body. It's just a Lexan touring car body. Perfect if you're going to do touring because you don't want to run a super nice body. It's way too easy to damage them, and it's nice quality. It fits beautifully. The paint is all inside, no stickers, but it looks really good. It's very centered from side to side. A lot of times, these types of bodies, they're not perfect in manufacturing. This body is as nice as you could possibly expect. If you're buying bodies, just note that in Canada, for example, a body like this to my door is about $30, between 20 and 30. They're not super cheap. You can get a hard body. Some of the hard bodies are available for a very similar price to that. So bodies are not super cheap. As I mentioned, 98 millimeter wheelbase. So the 94 millimeter wheelbase. The 98 is much, much more common. And you're going to have to adjust it if you want to run the 98. But, I don't have a real complaint. So I thought I was getting the red. I'm almost positive the ad that I ordered from said the red. Did not get the red. I thought I was getting a kit that I would have to build. The ad was pretty clear about that. I got a pre-made version. So this store is not perfect. And there are other comments from people where they didn't get exactly what the ad said. Welcome to cheap Chinese, blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, this is close enough to what I wanted that I'm not complaining. It's all good. This car is very, very reasonably priced. To me, these sorts of things become much more of an issue if you're paying premium dollars, and this site does have some premium price stuff. I would hope that somebody that orders, a similar car to this, with some higher end features and whatnot, paying, close to double the price, that they would get exactly what they ordered, but not 100% sure. Now, this is all well and good, and the only downside to this car, is that there are some, I'm going to call it non-standard parts, even though it's a little bit harsh because this car clearly is something that a lot of work went into. See these dog bones here? So these are dog bones. It's not a CV. It's not a CV front end. So there's a drive cup on each end and a dog bone that sits into the drive cup. That is not fundamentally a bad thing, but where do you find those dog bones? That's the question. I couldn't find them anywhere. Now, you may be thinking, ooh, that's a good reason not to buy the car. Well, hold on a sec. It all is not lost, and the reason I gambled is because one of the things you can order is a complete front end. Either a two-wheel drive conversion front end or a four-wheel drive front end that is essentially the same as what's in this, except it comes with metal arm ends, metal knuckles, a bunch of upgraded stuff. Comes with a diff, comes with metal dog bones, complete front end, just no tires, no wheels and tires. 54 Canadian dollars shipped to my door, I believe it is, 54, 56, something like that. If you price out all the parts that are in this, that's a really good deal. That is not super expensive. And you can say, okay, well, yeah, but it's costing me $50. Yes, but if you're serious about this hobby and you're racing or competing in any way, you're going to want to have spare parts, because if you break something, you're going to want to be able to fix your car. That means you essentially need a complete front end worth of parts to make sure that you can get the car up and running. So for a lot of people, that's not a crazy expense to get essentially everything you could possibly need in a nice convenient little package all put together. And keep in mind that the front and back is basically the same. So parts availability is a little dodgy in that you can't get individual parts for the most part. You can get suspension arms, you can get hardware, you can't get a diff, you can't get dog bones. I think you can get knuckles if I remember correctly. So not terrible, and that's all the metal parts, and they're on the pricey side for sure. To me, it makes more sense to buy that whole unit. I kind of weighed it all, and I rolled the dice on this car because I like high quality if I can get it for a reasonable price. This is such a good deal for the money, because I don't know if you've looked around, but right now, any all-wheel drive drift car is going to be 100 Canadian minimum, absolute minimum. Like you can't get a complete chassis with electronics for less than $100 Canadian. It can't be done. A high-end car, carbon fiber, all nice parts, super good quality, that's like 200 US minimum. 300 US is common, and that's without electronics. It's a really good deal. This car is very inexpensive. That's why I rolled dice. For what you're getting, it's a good deal. So, a little bit of downside, but in my humble opinion, it's not terrible. And this car drives very, very nicely, my friends. Now, I am not a very good drifter, so any videos I show you, it's definitely not going to live up to its full potential in the video because I'm just not that good at drifting. But trust me when I tell you, if you compare this to a cheap entry-level RC drifter, that's way better. So much better. It's not even funny. You definitely are getting good quality for your money. So, bottom line, I mean, I give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. And I feel like I'm being a little hard on it at that, because for the price, how are you going to get anything better? I really don't think you are. It's very, very hard to come up with something that's a better car than this for the price tag. So I give this basically a glowing endorsement. I would not hesitate to buy this again. It's a really, really nice car, and it drives super, super well. So hopefully I covered everything. At some point I will get into this in more detail, just because it came nicely made and everything is really good. Like, I really couldn't find any problems with it other than the diffs were tight. I didn't really want to take it apart just for shits and giggles, because, you know, with these little cars, there's always a chance of making mistakes, and I don't have a whole lot of spare parts, so I just figured I'd drive it for a while before I got too heavy into the taking apart. But rest assured, down the road sometime, especially if I find problems, I will post some follow-up and keep you posted. Now, am I expecting to find problems? I got to be honest with you. No, I'm not. And way back in the day, I did a review of the Mini TRQ1, and the reason I didn't do a whole lot of follow-up on that car, two reasons. At one point, I basically didn't have any place to drive these things, so I was not driving it very much anymore. But the cold hard reality, I've done nothing to that car. At this point, it's fairly loose and floppy, and it really needs a bunch of parts. And they're not easy to get for the most part. So I just figured I'd get a new car. But that car, I mean, nothing went wrong, right? It just keeps driving. Essentially, all it did was wear out. If this car that is so much better isn't, I don't know, I guess a similar level of quality, like a level of durability, I'd be super, super surprised. So, I don't know what to tell you guys. To me, I don't know. I'll be very, very surprised if I'm in any way, shape, or form upset with this car anytime soon. So, yeah, stay tuned. I definitely will post a few little running videos, especially if I manage to improve my drift skills to a level where I don't look terrible. And yeah, away we go. That's it for this edition of Wrench to Drive, where we ask the eternal question: do you drive to wrench, or do you wrench to drive? See you next time.